All right, welcome in. I'm Brian Edwards of MajorWager.com, joining you on Friday, May 31st, one day after Tony Miller and his staff, Aaron Kessler and the gang at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas, releasing more than 100 games of the year point spreads. So it used to be a real big deal when a team would be a double-digit favorite in every game of the year. Like, for example, Alabama and Clemson had 7 of their games apiece listed. I remember, well, definitely the last couple of years, it's been the case with Bama and Clemson. I think even a couple of those USC teams with Leinart and Reggie Bush may have had that. But, usually it's big news when a team is double-digit favored in all their games, and we've had it quite a bit here recently, and so it's not that big of news anymore. And so now with Alabama and Clemson, they've separated themselves from everybody else so much. Obviously Georgia, has lost 2 heartbreakers to Alabama, but now you're just looking like, how many are they going to be favored by? We know they're going to be double digits. Well, in the case of Clemson, incredible. They are favored by 17.5 points or more in their 7 line games of the year from the Golden Nugget. So the first one, they are minus 17.5 at home against Texas A&M. Remember, they went to College Station last year, barely escaped with a 28-26 win. There was a controversial call that went against A&M in the fourth quarter, but Clemson did survive. And now A&M, Kellen Mond, Jimbo Fisher and company, they will come to Death Valley in week 2, and they will be significant underdogs. Now, moving on to the rest of Clemson's games, they are minus 18 at Syracuse. Let me just go down the whole list. They are 27 at North Carolina, minus 25 versus the semis, minus 32 at Louisville, minus 24 at NC State, and minus 23.5 at South Carolina, which puts Will Muschamp in a double-digit home underdog situation. He's also in that same situation when they play Alabama earlier in the year. Alabama's minus 18. As a home dog under Muschamp, South Carolina 4-4 against the spread with 3 outright wins in those 8 instances. But as a double-digit home underdog under Muschamp, the Gamecocks are 2-0 against the spread with 1 outright win, and they'll be double-digit home dogs twice this season, with Alabama and Clemson coming to Williams-Brice Stadium. South Carolina, toughest schedule in the country. I think if Will Muschamp goes 7-5, he should be in the running for SEC Coach of the Year. They play 4 of the teams that finished in the top 7 of the final Associated Press poll last year. And that does not include the fact they have to go to College Station. And they also, I know North Carolina was not good last year, but anyway, we'll get back to South Carolina later. Let's go back to Clemson. I think that all these big numbers are justified, except for the one at Syracuse. So I looked up, so Clemson, in its last 18 ACC games, they are 17-1 straight up. The only loss being at Syracuse 2 years ago at the Carrier Dome on a short week on a Friday night. Now, so out of those 18 games where they're 17-1 straight up, they've won 15 of those 18 by double-digit margins. The only ones they haven't, 38-31 at NC State 2 years ago, the outright loss that I just mentioned at the Carrier Dome, and then last year in Death Valley when Eric Dungy, Dino Babers and company came in there, led nearly the entire game, took a 23-13 lead early in the fourth quarter. Clemson had to rally to win 27-23. So I think 18 is too many to lay against Syracuse. And here are just a couple of quick stats on the Cuse. They bring back 6 starters on offense. Now, they lose Dungy, but Tommy DeVito, he got a lot of playing time last year. He rallied them to victory in the North Carolina game. When Dungy went out in the first half against FSU, he played outstanding in that pimp slap of the Seminoles. Syracuse has 7 players back on defense. Andre Cisco, they got their whole secondary back. Andre Cisco, the free safety sophomore, one of the nation's leaders in interceptions as a true freshman, preseason All-American in a lot of publications. Also, defensive ends, Kendall Coleman and Alton Robinson. Those guys are future NFL players. Both were on, I believe, the All-ACC second team last year. So Syracuse is going to be formidable again, despite the loss of Eric Dungy, who might make the Giants roster, by the way. Have read some good things on him. Okay, so now we talked about Clemson, 17.5 or more in each game. Now how about Alabama? Alabama, 13-point favorites or more in every one of their line games, of which there were 7. Let's go through them. Minus 18, as I mentioned earlier, at South Carolina. Minus 34 versus Ole Miss. Minus 14 at Texas A&M. Minus 31 against Jeremy Pruitt and the Vols. Minus 16 at Bryant-Denny versus LSU. Minus 20 at Mississippi State. Stark Vegas, where they got that enormous scare 2 seasons ago. And then the smallest chalk spot for Bama, minus 13 at Auburn. Okay, let me check the clock here. We're only 6 minutes in. Good. Plenty more time. All right, the biggest line moves yesterday. LSU at home, minus 9.5 against Auburn. That was bet down to 6.5. I go into this season with a lot of uncertainty about Auburn, which I do in the summer before a football season with every team where I'm just not really familiar with the quarterback play. So Patrick Nix, quarterback for Auburn in the 90s, made that pass to the swamp on October 15th of 1994 to Frank Sanders. Pissed me off. But anyway, his son, Bo Nix, big-time recruit. Pretty sure he enrolled in the spring and was there for the spring football. And most feel he'll be the starter and will win the job. So that will leave. I don't automatically play him, but I always look for spots where, even in the NFL, if it's a team starting a rookie quarterback, his first career road start, and it applies to college as well. And so whether it's Bo Nix or the host of other candidates at Auburn, whoever it is starting under center at Texas A&M in week 3, week 3, Texas A&M is only minus 3.5 at home against Auburn. A new quarterback going at $100,000 at Kyle Field, the 12th man. I like the Aggies minus 3.5 there. I mentioned LSU being minus 9.5, being bet down 3 points and crossing a key number of 7 to 6.5 in Baton Rouge against Auburn. That rivalry has had 3 thrillers in a row. Les Miles is, for the umpteenth time, utter incompetence with clock management cost them the victory at Auburn. He was fired the next day. And then the next season, Auburn went into Baton Rouge, had that big lead. I think it was 23-7 at half. LSU rallied to win. Then last year, LSU, a double-digit dog, goes into the Plains, gets a last-second field goal as time expired to win outright. That may still be the biggest win of Ed Orgeron's tenure so far. So anyhow, let's get to some other games. Some notable Week 8 numbers. Look, FSU is not getting much respect from the odds makers. They're a 1.5-point home underdog to Syracuse. I mentioned the 25-point dog spot to Clemson. Some other Week 8 games: Ohio State minus 13 versus Wisconsin. Michigan minus 6 versus Notre Dame. Revenge game for the Wolverines there. Oregon minus 6 versus Washington State. Iowa minus 3 at Northwestern. Let's talk about my Gators, a 4.5-point underdog at LSU, a 3.5-point underdog against Georgia, a 14-point home favorite against the Semis, a 7.5-point favorite in Orlando against the Canes on August 24th, Saturday night. Got moved up a month or two ago. It's going to stand alone as the lone college football game to start the season, August 24th. It will probably be 110 degrees in Orlando, and that's why I will be in the comforts of my air conditioning at home. Let's see. Let's give you some rivalry week numbers. I gave you the Gators and the Sims. Notre Dame minus 5.5 at Stanford. Stanford loses my guy, Caden Smith. KJ Costello is back at quarterback, but one of only 3 returning starters on offense for the Cardinal. Oklahoma is minus 10 at Oklahoma State. LSU, huge revenge spot from that 7 overtime, gut-wrenching, back-breaking, soul-crushing L to the Aggies last year. They're favored by 7.5 this time around. Even though Michigan has lost 14 of the last 15 to Ohio State. Can you imagine that? I couldn't live if my Gators had lost to the semis 14 of 15 years. Ugh, just dig me a hole and let me move into it. Ugh, that's gross. Nevertheless, Michigan is a 3.5-point home favorite against the Buckeyes this year. Of course, the Buckeyes hung 62 on what at the time was the nation's top-ranked defense in the regular season finale last year. You know, we're going to break this up. I'm going to do another video on these games of the year, but we're already pretty deep into this one and covered a lot of ground. So we're going to wrap this one up. I'm Brian Edwards of MajorWager.com. Thanks for joining us. Over and out.